I have been waiting for this one. Hello. There are good book-to-movie adaptations. That might seem obvious considering the fact that for the last 20 years, Harry Potter, a book-to-movie adaptation, has been one of the biggest media moneymakers. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about actual adaptation. No offense to the Harry Potter books. Even though series like Harry Potter have popped off, for lack of a better word, I'm sure you still tense up at the idea of your favorite book becoming a movie. There's like a distinctive kind of like, clench that your body does, realizing that someone else will be taking something that matters so much to you and changing it. Because yes, adaptations from book to movie have to have changes to make them work. And I know, people do not like to hear that, but it is true. Books and movies are quite obviously two different mediums. The way you tell your story in either is radically different. But if they are so different that you have to change stuff, can an adaptation be accurate or even good? In my opinion, yes. In fact, I think there are a lot of very, very good book-to-movie adaptations. But in my opinion, there is only one book-to-movie adaptation that I would consider the best or the perfect adaptation. And that is none other than Coraline. Coraline was originally published July 2nd, 2002, and is written by author Neil Gaiman. Then in 2009, Coraline was adapted into a movie, which if you have not seen the Coraline movie, then I don't know who you are. I don't know how you've made it this far in life. I think you're lying to me, actually, if you say you've never seen this movie. Adapted and directed by Henry Selick and produced by Leica Studios, this is probably the most notable piece of stop-motion animation to come out in my lifetime, for sure. Sorry, Kubo and the Two Strings, this is a whole nother beast. But in order for me to talk about why I think this is the perfect book-to-movie adaptation, the most absolutely flawless point of reference that all directors and writers should use for the rest of all time if they are planning on adapting something, before I can say that, I have to talk about what makes a good adaptation and how adaptations work. So how do you make a good adaptation? The first thing is to obviously have the right team behind it, which might seem obvious. You obviously want a good director, you obviously want a good author, you obviously want a dynamic duo, but that's not even what I'm talking about, because plenty of good directors have made really flop adaptations because it's about knowing your medium and preferably knowing both mediums. You will hear all the time that if you want to be an author, you have to read books. And if you want to be a director, you have to really watch movies, all movies, even movies you don't like. The same thing goes for making any piece of media. That's why when I go to edit and direct my fiction podcast, I am constantly listening to other fiction podcasts. You cannot create something unless you know truly at your core the spirit of what you're creating. And I'm not talking about the spirit of the story, I'm talking about the spirit of the piece, the medium, what art you are creating. The same way you can't pick up a paintbrush and become the next Monet, you can't pick up a camera or a, typewriter, if anyone still use that, and become the next Neil Gaiman or Henry Selick. You need people to work on this adaptation that know the medium, and again, preferably know both mediums. And you need a director that understands why this piece worked as a book, and therefore how you can create the same feeling in a movie. Most adaptations fail not because they are not accurate, but because they do not capture the vibe of the piece. The energy, the aura, the spirit, the whatever. They don't capture what the book makes you feel. They're too busy worrying about being 100% accurate, when in reality, your experience reading a book and watching a movie are going to be 100% different, no matter how identical the scripts are. So you need to capture the vibe. And in my opinion, Coraline captures the vibe despite many inaccuracies between book and movie. I'm gonna level with you guys. I had never read the Coraline book before I decided to make this video. Listen, I was 10 years old when the Coraline movie came out. And yes, I loved the movie at the time, but I was not gonna seek out the book. You know why? 10 years old was the beginning of my Warrior Cast addiction, and that would take up minimum 6 years of my life, if not more. So I was in the middle of something very important for my development, didn't have time to read Coraline. But I've read it, I've annotated it, we're coming with sources, girls. And I want to talk about how Neil Gaiman's writing style also lends itself to be a good adaptation. So boom, you have the perfect team, but do you have the perfect source? If you have not read anything of Neil Gaiman's, I highly recommend actually possibly starting with Coraline. I started with Neverwhere, and then quickly followed it by Ocean at the End of the Lane, then followed by American Gods, And then we ended up here. I have a long Neil Gaiman list to still get through. And yes, I've seen Good Omens, but I haven't read the book. Does that count? Ooh, and Sandman, before I forget. But I read the comics long before the show came out, and I have not watched the show yet. Oopsie. Anyway, Neil Gaiman's writing style. Neil Gaiman is a master of what I would like to call adult whimsy. There is a deep sophistication to his writing, but there's also such intense imagination. This imagination comes from two different places, in my opinion. The imagination comes from a willingness to accept the surreal without worrying about suspension of disbelief. He makes you enjoy the story without thinking too hard about it, and that is very important. Not enough authors just let their audience sit in disbelief anymore. Not enough pieces of media let their audience exist within the fantasy world. They feel like they have to explain everything. Neil Gaiman does not. So he makes you, one, sit in his imagination, and then two, he does not over-describe things, forcing you to sit in your imagination. We are not in here seeing exactly how Coraline's bedroom looks down to the crown molding like we do in some other books. I'm a writer, and I fall victim to purple prose over-describe the space, just like how I think anyone else has who grew up reading high fantasy or otherwise. But Neil Gaiman does not fall into that trap. He uses the exact amount of words that he needs to get his point across, and the exact amount of words you need to activate your own imagination to see what he's trying to tell you, while also experiencing it on your own. Neil Gaiman's work lends itself great to people feeling original feelings, feeling unique feelings, feeling this sophisticated adult whimsy. Sorry I'm like stimming with the book and forcing you all to watch me. And in my opinion, this creates the perfect balance for something actually being able to be put on screen and enjoyed as a book simultaneously. There are some books out there that are completely unadaptable. Not because they're not good, but because they are not written in a way that can be adaptable. The most obvious example of like an unadaptable book, despite people trying their hardest, is Lolita. But that's too obvious to say, you know what I mean? Everyone with a brain knows that Lolita, as a book, is special and sacred because of the specific point of view that you experience, because of the type of villain you are experiencing the story through, and the type of headspace that the villain is in while he is writing this book for you to read. You have to be in a very specific poetry type of space to absorb something as dark and intense as Lolita. And when movies try to adapt Lolita, they obviously miss the mark because you are no longer in our main character's head and you are not experiencing the true horror and predatory nature of our villain. But that's obvious. Like I said, anyone who has read more than 2 books and watched more than 2 movies kind of can understand that Lolita's unadaptable. But what is a more obscure example of something that's unadaptable? Hello, Donna Tartt. The Secret History. Sorry, this book is so much weightier compared to this. It's actually hilarious. I feel like I could absolutely take someone down with this now. This feels so heavy after flailing around that little baby book right there. You might wonder how Donna Tartt's writing might be unadaptable considering the fact that The Goldfinch is a banger movie and a banger book. But I'm not talking about The Goldfinch. I'm talking about just this book, The Secret History, specifically. The Secret History is actually a book that has been attempted to be adapted many times. Most times it tries to be adapted, it doesn't even get past the proposal process because the directors and the studios continue to cancel it. There is always a piece missing when this is attempted to be adapted. Warner Brothers acquired the rights to The Secret History in 1992, and since then a movie has really not seen the light of day. And while many reasons for the multiple cancellations, for the numerous attempts at adapting this book can be given, many excuses involving actors and money and timing and audiences, I don't believe it. I think it's because this book is unadaptable. The way this book is written is deeply intimate. And not intimate like Lolita is, where we are experiencing sheer terror, horror, and pain the whole time, but intimate in a very secret way, I guess, is a good way to put it. It is a book that goes over various different types of loves and regrets and yearning. If there was one word I could pick to describe this book to recommend it to people, it's yearning. This book also has a decent amount of suspense and anxiety woven into the plot. And while yes, obviously movies can give you feelings of intimacy, suspense, and anxiety, there is a specific brand to The Secret History that I think is what makes it unadaptable. These characters I do not think would play well without our main character's narration. His experiences paint the world so much. Compared to Lolita, our main character here is not necessarily an unreliable narrator, but he is a wistful narrator. He sees the world with a very specific point of view. He experiences very specific types of yearning and pain. And I do not think a movie where we are ripped out of this character's head could do proper service to a story like this. So to circle back around, get us back up to speed, take you out of the book section and get you back in adaptation brain. Point 1, you need a team who knows how to adapt. Point 2, you need a source material that lends itself to being adapted. And 3, you need to have your changes mean something. To change simply for the sake of changing, to change simply for the sake of aesthetic, to change simply for the sake of your personal preference as a director, that's not fair to the source material. Your changes must mean something, and they must mean something positive to the source material and to your audience. Again, the goal is to give your audience the exact same feeling that they had when they read the book. That does not mean it needs to be accurate, but that means the changes need to mean something to the story. And to show you examples of what it means for your changes to mean something, we're going to go over the changes between book to movie Coraline. If you've made it this far in the video, I don't think I have to do this, but I'll do it out of courtesy. If you haven't seen Coraline, or if you want to read the book sometime in the future, stop the video now, pause me, go watch the movie, go to your local library and pick up a copy of the book, and then come back here when you're done, and then you can agree with everything I say. If you need a refresher on what Coraline is about, 11-year-old Coraline has moved to a new home with her family. While her parents are busy doing what parents do, Coraline ends up discovering a small little door in her house that leads her to an exact mirror world of hers. And there lives a being named the Other Mother. Coraline is plunged into a world of surrealist whimsy and terrifying horrors, and she has to go on a grand adventure to save her parents and save herself. If you're wondering why I left up so much stuff off that quick summary, it's because so many things were changed between the book and the movie, I didn't know which one to summarize for you. First things first, let's talk about energy. The book Coraline is filled with a lot more dread. The book also feels significantly more lonely. The movie has a lot more whimsy to it. The movie feels a lot more magical. The book feels a little bit more straightforward and a little bit more gray. Coraline in the book is a very different Coraline than the one we have in the movies, and it gives us different emotions then while reading or watching it. First off, book Coraline is significantly more intelligent than movie Coraline. She is an extremely smart 11-year-old, wise beyond her years. Meanwhile, movie Coraline is a bit more of a brat in my opinion. In the movie, Coraline actually also feels older than an 11-year-old in my opinion, while in the book, I very much hear an 11-year-old in Coraline's dialogue. When we see the world from her point of view and when she talks to people, I very much feel the 11-year-old in it, while in the movie, Coraline gives me older energy. She just sounds so young in the book compared to how she talks in the movie. And this specific difference in Coraline's also changes how we perceive the world and the Other Mother. Neil Gaiman's language is very specific and direct, and that kind of makes the movie feel almost fluffier than the book. That being said, a lot of dialogue from certain scenes was taken word for word from the book, which is very cool. It's always very cool to see that and feel that. But besides the lines that are lifted directly from the book, Coraline is drastically different as a person. In fact, most of the lines that are lifted directly don't come from Coraline herself, they come from the cat or the Other Mother. I mentioned that book Coraline is significantly more intelligent than movie Coraline. She's intelligent for two big reasons. One, she explores out of boredom instead of necessity, and that makes her appear much more in control of her situation and herself. Coraline also is more intelligent in the book because she knows from the beginning that something weird is going on. She knows it's a trap. But this isn't just because she's smart, as even though she is much smarter than movie Coraline, this is also because the Other Mother does not really bother to disguise herself quite at all in the book. In the book, she is described as being very inhuman and spindly and spider-like from the first moment that you see her. Meanwhile, in the movies, we have
a normal MILF. Enough said.
Because of things like the other mother not disguising herself, I would say the Coraline book is also much more straightforward horror than the movie is. Which might shock you if you've seen the movie, since for kids, the Coraline movie is pretty freaking scary. But the book is a lot more jarring. That's a good word for it. The book's significantly more jarring. The book itself also feels significantly more inspired by Alice in Wonderland than the movie does. I don't know if Neil Gaiman has ever listed Alice in Wonderland as a specific inspiration for Coraline, but Alice in Wonderland is the natural inspiration for most creepy kids things, unintentionally. But the cadence and the tone of her experiences in the other world, very similar to Alice in Wonderland. Alice wants a world of nonsense, Coraline wants not to be bored. They both encounter sarcastic cats and evil mother figures. There's also a direct parallel to the Disney Alice in Wonderland on page 80. When Coraline is talking to the ghost kids, she specifically talks about flowers talking, having names, etc. And in the Disney movie, there are flowers that talk. Specifically, there is a line in the song World of My Own.
All the flowers would have very extra special powers. They would sit and talk to me for hours when I'm lonely in a world of my own.
The parallels are glaring, to me at least. The biggest change, though, in book to movie, besides the addition of Wybie, which put a pin in that, we will get to that at the end, I pinky promise. The biggest change book to movie is how the parents act. In the book, Coraline's parents are not mean. Coraline's mother does not read as mean to me. Coraline does not fight with her parents as much as she does in the movie. In the book, they are just kind of tired. Coraline is bored because they won't play with her, because they won't spend time with her. And in the book, it does not feel like it is as pointed as it is in the movie. In the movie, Coraline's mother is very, very harsh with her. Harsh with her a lot. Meanwhile, in the book, Coraline's mother is just kind of distracted and actually rather kind sometimes. In the movie, she's a lot more intense. I think this was necessary, though. I think for a children's movie, movies need a lot more visual shorthand. I've used that word already, but literally it needs a lot more just quick cues. Books can give you paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs to describe a character. Movies, you basically get 3 minutes to tell your audience the tea before you have to get right back into it. Obviously, it depends on the movie, but we're talking about a children's movie, which has a limited runtime. The parents are distant in the book, but straight up antagonists in the movie. The older you get, the more you understand Coraline's parents in general, but in the movies, it's very hard to have any sympathy for the mom sometimes. Coraline acts out more, and her mother also acts out more in the movie. Both of them are at the same time more defiant, more catty, more bratty. They're more at each other's throats. There's more aggression and pain in their relationship.
I almost fell down a well yesterday, Mom.
Uh-huh.
I would have died.
That's nice.
So, can I go out? I think it's perfect weather for gardening.
No, Coraline. Rain makes mud. Mud makes a mess.
Mom, I want stuff growing when my friends come to visit. Isn't that why we moved here?
Something like that. But then, we had the accident.
It wasn't my fault you hit that truck.
I never said it was.
Can't believe it. You and Dad get paid to write about plants, and you hate dirt.
Coraline, I don't have time for you right now. And you still have unpacking to do. Lots of unpacking.
That sounds exciting.
There's a lot more direct problems with Coraline's relationship, specifically with her mother.
Put them back.
But Mom, the whole school's gonna wear boring gray clothes. No one will have these.
Put them back.
Meanwhile, in the books, like I said, Coraline is just bored. I asked my partner what he thought about this because he loves the Coraline movie, and something he said was really interesting to me. He said that he thinks that they had to create this extra tension with the movie Mother to excuse why Coraline goes back as many times as she does in the movie. Because in the book, Coraline does not go back so many times to the other world. There are a lot less of the miracles in the book. There's a lot less reason to stay for Coraline in the book. Coraline in the movie has higher stakes, choosing to go back, choosing to sew on the buttons, etc. In the books, especially since Coraline knows something is up from day one, she never really considers leaving behind her family and her parents. But in the movie, Coraline's kind of given a reason to think about it. Even if she doesn't, even if she gets extremely freaked out and she immediately goes to her room and she tries to leave, she's given reason to think about it. We as an audience are given reason to think about it. The book, being a straight up horror, doesn't really have that knife twist to it. And so now we return to YB because of the dynamic with the parents. It all goes together. Book Coraline is bored out of her mind, and that's important because Book Coraline's motivation comes from her boredom. If she was to have a friend to play with, she would not go to the other world at all. This wouldn't really matter to her. Meanwhile, movie Coraline needs someone to talk to. Henry Selick stated that the reason that YB was added to the movie adaptation is because for so much of the Coraline book, we are inside Coraline's head, and so to get those thoughts out loud for an audience to understand, you need someone for Coraline to talk to. And in my opinion, that's a good enough reason to add an original character no matter what.
But YB also serves as a genuine emotional connection to Coraline. It's someone who she does care about, even though he annoys her and pokes fun at her, and this connection helps her figure out the mystery of the other mother and gives her a reason to fight back that isn't just her parents. In fact, YB even gives Coraline the ability to be more empathetic to her own real mother through her emotional connection to him.
YB is an absolutely amazing change, not only for a functional reason, but an emotional reason. Book Coraline, if adapted line for line, would kind of be really boring for like huge chunks of the book. And that's not because the book is boring, but it's because the book is very obviously written to be a book. Meanwhile, I think movie Coraline would be a nightmare of a book to read. I think movie Coraline would be insufferable to be inside of her head the way we are with this Coraline. They are different for a reason. But the differences work. But what makes this the perfect movie adaptation? It's literally these changes. It's literally these choices. It's obviously a combination of all 3 points I made earlier, a team that knows what they're doing, good source material, and good changes, but specifically the changes are what makes it a perfect adaptation movie. I don't know a single Neil Gaiman fan, a single fan of the Coraline books that was disappointed by the movie. The changes, yes, are not book accurate, but what they are is accurate to the energy. Because no matter how different movie Coraline and book Coraline are, you experience their fear the same in these different mediums. You experience their loneliness, their desire for their parents, their desire for attention, and you understand both of them when they go to this other world, when they see what can be given to them. You understand the 2 different points of view, and you understand, empathize, and live their experiences with them. The energy is the same. You get the same vibe. That's the point. Are there other movies I think that are adapted well from books? Yeah. In fact, this video is a precursor to a different video I will be making later about my favorite classic literature movie adaptation, which is significantly more of a controversial take than saying that the Coraline movie was good. There are right ways and wrong ways to do an adaptation, and if you are someone who wants to make movies or ever have your book changed into a movie, look at this. Look at Coraline. Look to Coraline. I think there is merit in saying that audiences, to a degree, need to lower their expectations when it comes to book-to-movie adaptations, because I do think certain book fandoms and certain book fans can be rather vicious towards people who want to make adaptations of their work. But I also think it is extremely fair to want a good movie made of a book you like. I think it's fair to want it to be done competently, and I think this is the best example of competence. So what do you think? Do you think Coraline is the book-to-movie adaptation, or for you, is there a different one? If there is a different one, let me know in the comments, because if I haven't seen it or haven't read it, I'm gonna want to do that. The college class I wanted to take in the fall semester, which is adapting literature for screen, was full, and I got waitlisted and I did not get in. So these videos are going to be me doing my own personal study until the class opens up in the spring. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you take anything at all from this video, take the fact that it is possible for anyone, including you, to make a good book-to-movie adaptation. It is extremely possible. It is very possible. And I would take 1,000,001 book-to-movie adaptations over another remake any day. I want Hollywood to pivot to this because it is possible and we should do it. They only flop because they let them flop. And that's my hot take about that.